Hey, this is Corey Lewandowski. I'm here with the co-author of our new book, David Bossie, and we have a new book called Let Trump Be Trump. It's the inside story of his rise to the presidency. It comes out tomorrow, but what we're doing today is we're here signing copies, and we want you to come and buy one of those signed copies immediately. We'll also be taking some time to answer your questions, and we'll talk through a little bit of how Dave and I came together on this project.
Looking forward to doing this. This is exciting for us. Our book, Let Trump Be Trump, comes out tomorrow in bookstores, and we really want everybody who is interested in how the president got to the White House, anybody who is a fan of the president, to buy this book. It is a great holiday gift, a great Christmas gift, a great gift for anybody in your family or friends that wants to understand the movement that was Donald Trump last year and how Corey and I both really played a small role in helping him become the president of the United States.
You know, this is a story of epic proportions, and what we talk about in this book is the rise of Donald Trump from an individual who the mainstream media never thought was going to run for office to him having a movement across the country, not only in the primary process where he decimated a field of 16 Republican candidates to win 38 primaries and caucuses, but also the general election. And Dave at the helm of the general election, looking at those debates with Hillary Clinton, how the mainstream media, even on election day, said that Donald Trump had no chance to win. What this book is about is understanding what really took place behind the scenes. It's funny, it's self-deprecating, it's tough at times, but it's a truthful account from the only two guys who were there for the whole thing.
From the beginning to the end. And we could just start with that, actually. Maybe I'll just go right into just how Corey and I got to know the president really quickly. It was 2010, and I was raising money for Children's Hospital in Washington, D.C. My son, who is now 14 years old, is somebody who has survived 4 brain surgeries and 2 heart surgeries. And he is truly a miracle child. And I was raising money for Children's Hospital, and a friend of mine, Steve Wynn from Las Vegas, Steve, who is now the chairman of the fundraising chairman, finance chairman for the Republican National Committee, appointed by the president, said to me, you know, my friend Donald Trump just bought the golf course where you host the golf tournament every year, and maybe he can help you. And so Steve Wynn got Donald Trump on the phone for me back in 2010, and we became fast friends. Over the years, I got a chance to know him very well, got a chance to help him with a lot of political efforts that he was going to undertake from 2012 on. In 2014, I introduced Corey to Mr. Trump at an event that he and I were hosting in New Hampshire, where Corey is from. And so then about 9 months later, when Mr. Trump asked me who should be the campaign manager, the first person, really the only person that came to mind, somebody that I knew would really be a great steward of what Mr. Trump's vision was, but also be a tireless worker and assistant to help put together a presidential campaign, was Corey. And Corey took over the campaign basically, January 1st?
January of 2015 we started.
January 2015. And so Corey ran the campaign for the first 18 months.
And look, it was an amazing experience, and it's truly changed my life because, like most other people, I didn't grow up rich or with privilege. Grew up in a very blue-collar town of Lowell, Massachusetts, and what I learned working for Donald Trump, what everybody can learn, is he pushes people to be the best because that's what he expects, that's what he demands, and that's what he deserves. And as I look back, 2 normal guys who had a special experience that helped change the direction of our country for the better. It's been such a privilege to have had a small role at that, but to really have a front seat at it. And look, there are a number of questions you guys have asked. If you go to lewandowskibook.com is where you can go to buy copies of the books that we're signing right now. Really important. You want to share this. It's a great gift. But look, there's a couple of really important stories in the book that we want to talk through, and we want to answer your questions. And, I'm looking here. Here's a question from Alyssa from New York, and she said, "Hey, Corey, what advice do you give your wife and kids regarding confrontations with people who aren't fans of Trump?" And this is a really tough thing, because at the end of the day, Dave and I both have families. 4 children Dave has, I've got 4 children, and our kids and our wives didn't sign up to be part of what we signed up to be part of. And there's some nasty people out there. Go to restaurants, you go out in public, and they say really tough things, and our kids are young, and they read about us on the fake news outlets all the time. And what I say is, what we did, what we're proud of, what we stood up for, was so that people can say and do whatever they think is right in this great country, but we're going to take the country in a different direction. And that's what Donald Trump has done. That's what we were part of, is someone who's willing to fight for what they believe in. And is it tough on the family? You bet it's tough on the family. And I am so lucky, and I know Dave is too, that we have families that have supported us through this. And a big part of the beginning part of this book is that family experience that Dave and I both have had, and how that played out through our relationship with the campaign.
That's really important, and this Mary, is this the one that you just read?
Nope, that's another one.
Mary from Hudson, Florida, writes. Let's see if I put my
says,
glasses
"I also
on.
wanted to know if you see and read our tweets to you, especially us telling you we are proud of you and thanks for all you are doing. Also, great title of the book."
Now that is the kind of thing we like to read, Mary. Thank you. We do see them, and it's tough because the left out there is so angry, they're and active. So we do see, for all of the great people like yourself that write, we do get a lot of the anger, and that's what Corey's talking about. Our kids, our wives, they didn't sign up for it. We're pretty resilient. We like to think of ourselves as tough guys, but you know what? It's not easy. But the name of the book actually was Corey's mantra, right?
Yeah, let Trump be Trump. And, there's a couple parts, and what that means is when I had the privilege of coming onto the Trump campaign early in 2015 and helping stand up an organization, I didn't want to change Donald Trump. I didn't want him to be somebody who I thought the American people wanted to hear from. The authentic nature of the candidate, the brashness, the boldness, his ability to say and do things that other politicians wouldn't do is what differentiated him to the American people and what he tapped into. We called him the blue-collar billionaire, and we talk about it in the book. We talk about the fast food on the airplane that we ate, the McDonald's, the Kentucky Fried Chicken. It was an everyday experience that two guys had. And you know what inspired us to write the book? And I'll let Dave talk about, but we had to tell the truth. And people will say that this book is tough in some places because the president was tough on us. He was tough on us. But what inspired us to write this book is so that you can hear from two people who are on the inside when every tough decision was made, from the day of the announcement to Election Day and all the way beyond. That's what it was, because the mainstream media doesn't want to tell the truth. So that's part of the reason we got together to do this.
We wanted the American people to see the side of him that the mainstream media doesn't allow to be seen. Just talking about him helping my son, and befriending my kids. And over the years, not just during the campaign, but for many, many years. And it has been a special thing for me and my family. My son, who is now 14, stood next to me and within just a few feet of the president on election night, and was able to participate in something that is truly a once-in-a-lifetime thing. All of my kids have seen and gone through this, and it is something that I thought one of the most important things that we could talk about in this book was really the president's, genuine kindness and warmth that he shows to people. certainly he, as Corey was saying a moment ago, he tore our faces off on multiple occasions. And guess what? Some of the times we deserved it. It's okay. You know, we are professionals. We tried to get perfection. We demanded perfection of the staff and of ourselves, and no more or less than what the president does. And that's what he does every day. He wants America to be great. And we're well on our way. You look at what this president's done, right, Corey? It's amazing what's gone on just with the sheer force of his will, the sheer force of his pen, and what he has brought forth to the American economy and hope, growth, and opportunity. The old Jack Kemp vision of America for every American to be able to have the American dream again. And I think you agree that is something that this president, you look at 3.3% growth. You know, we were in Barack Obama's 8 years, we were at the new normal, 1.2%, 1.4%, 1.6% GDP every year. And it became the new normal. It's unacceptable. Stagnation is unacceptable. And that is why we were so excited to defeat Hillary Clinton and help our friend become the president.
Well, it's right. And, you know, I look at Faye just wrote a question from Roanoke, Virginia. She said, if you wanted me to know one thing about the president, what would it be? You know, Faye, what I would tell you is this president is so magnanimous. He is so gracious. He is so kind. He gets such a bad rap from the mainstream media. And, you know, Faye, I spent a lot of time on the road campaigning with candidate Trump. I've gotten the privilege of spending time with President Trump. He never stops to fails to ask about my family.
100%.
He always, you know, the Easter egg roll this year at the White House, the president called Dave and I up and he said, bring the kids, bring the family. And I said, you know, sir, I don't want a favor. I don't need anything. He says, Corey, it's not a favor. I want you to do this. And out of all the people who were there at the White House that day, Dave and I were together with our 8 kids collectively, his wife, my wife, and the president stopped right there. And there's a picture of it in the book. And he stopped in front of everybody else, and he came right over to us, Faye, and he took a picture, and he said, how you guys doing? And he said to our kids, you know what? I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for your dads. And that's so special. And it's such a special thing when the President of the United States recognizes the work we did. People don't see that side of him. So what we want to talk about in this book, once you're on the Trump team, you're on the team whether you've been there a day, a week, a year, or 100 years. You get on the airplane with him, it's your plane. And I mean that in the best sense. The food, you don't ask. You become part of the team.
You can have as much McDonald's, Kentucky Fried Chicken, or pizza you want. It's all good.
You know, you want to go play a golf course. I don't play golf, but he says, Corey, please invite your friends, your family. He is so gracious. And I think the one part that's missing, and you think of the story of Dave needing help when his son was sick, and the candidate then, Mr. Trump, stepped up. I've seen it so many times. Families have been in trouble. He's got no press, no publicity. He's written a check. He's called. He's made a personal touch. That's what we want you to know about. And that's what we talk about in this book is the human side of Donald Trump that doesn't get revealed. And I'll tell you, look, there's some great pictures in this book. You got to go to lewandowskibook.com to get them. But you look at the police and the firefighters who've supported this candidate throughout the entire election cycle. We wouldn't be there if it wasn't for those guys.
This picture right here on whatever, I can't tell, but it's in front of Rescue 1, okay? It's the most famous rescue station in the New York City Fire Department, and you are a special breed if you work at that department. And I got a chance to be there with the president. I actually took that picture, even though we don't give photo credits. And Mayor Rudy Giuliani was with us, with the president, then the candidate, and the firefighters, the guys, the men and women on the floor, the firefighters who go into these most dangerous places every single day, just were overwhelmingly supportive of the president and his campaign across the country. The blue-collar worker, the forgotten men and women, they are the ones who, just like on that day on 9/11 when we visited Rescue 1, that was the backbone, that was the spine of our victory. Those are the people who supported us, and without it, we wouldn't be here today.
You know, there's another picture in the book, and you go to lewandowskibook.com to buy it, and what you'll see in that book is a picture of Donald Trump standing in front of his famous airplane, that big, beautiful Boeing 757, with a whole bunch of police officers. And every single time, and I'd been in the motorcade hundreds of times, when we drove up to the plane before we left, it wasn't even a question. He says, Corey, I want to take a picture with the fellas. Let's bring all the police together.
Every time, no matter where we were.
The Secret Service officer, the detail leader, whether it was Mark Haberstadt or Scott Christian, who we dedicate part of this book to, for the work that they did to protect us and the president, and the great work of the Secret Service, they'd say, Corey, can we stop and take a couple of pictures? I'd say, please stop asking. It's a yes. It's not even a question. He did it every single time. Not because he wanted publicity, not because he thought he was going to win him votes, because it was the right thing to do. And those are the people, as Dave said, that across the country, across this great nation, supported Donald Trump from New York City to Las Vegas and across the country every single time he stopped with the police and the firefighters and shake hands and spend extra time with them.
Let's see here. Steve from Bethesda, Maryland. Would you vote for Trump again? I think for the two of us, we are proud of this president, what he's tried to do. He's a change agent. And I think everybody who, whether you agree with the president or not on every issue, you will say that he is somebody who came to Washington to change the broken status quo, to get our great nation working again, to make it safer again from radical Islam. That is, the danger not only at home but abroad. To make America's policy, his policy of peace through strength, to build our great military up again. Of course, and I'll let Corey speak to this, but of course, I look forward to in 3 years' time when it's time to go into the ballot box again. He's just starting to get Washington in line, and that's the reason that they come after him so much, is because he's a change agent. He's not a Washington creature, somebody who's going to go along and get along. He's a guy who goes in and flips over a desk and kicks in a door and says, we're going to get to work here, folks. We're going to get some things accomplished for the American people, because nothing's getting done in this broken town. And that's the thing that I think that as time continues to go by, with this huge victory on tax reform that we just had, that's going to, I hope, get more victories and more victories and more victories.
Well, look, I can't see a scenario where I wouldn't support a re-election effort if he decides to run. And when you read the book, you'll see how small of a campaign it was, how much of a meritocracy it was. There was a question in here, how did Mr. Trump pitch the campaign to you in order to get you to join? It was amazing. Because I had the privilege, and we write about it in the book, and you go to lewandowskibook.com to order one, and what you saw in there was a man who makes decisions. And after David introduced me to Mr. Trump in April of 2014, and I'd come to New York to meet Mr. Trump about a potential job, 20 minutes into the interview, he hired me. And he said, guess what, you hired. And I didn't really know I was coming for a job. It's a long story, and I didn't actually tell my wife at the time I was coming to New York for a job, so she was a little surprised as well. But it changed my life. And it changed my life because everybody told me I'd never work in politics again, that he was not a serious candidate, that this was all a game of ruse. And what I saw that day, I saw a person who didn't need money, didn't need fame or fortune, had all the money he'd ever need in the world to be successful, had been a New York Times best-selling author, a #1 television personality, a real estate mogul. He'd done it all. He didn't need to put himself or his family through the grueling rigors of a presidential campaign. But he looked at me and he said, Corey, we need to do better for our country. We need to have better trade deals. We need to stop illegal immigration. We need to rein in the overzealous bureaucrats in Washington. And I want to do that. And I said, sir, I don't think you understand how tough a campaign's going to be. And he said, I want to do it. And I signed up that day on the spot after he had talked to me for about 15 minutes. And I was so engaged, so enamored that I came to work the next day and put 20 hours a day in every day I could until I left the campaign in late June. And Dave came in, and Dave got there because I begged him, because I knew that Mr. Trump, candidate Trump, GOP nominee Trump, needed Dave Bossie and Kellyanne Conway and Steve Bannon to come in and finish this campaign because they're not afraid to lose their job. They're not afraid to tell him what he needs to hear. And that was what the campaign needed, and that's what they brought.
Let's take another question, shall we? What do you think? Let's see. Anybody? Corey, what do you think?
Right here.
What do you got?
In the early stages of the campaign, which one or two candidates did you see as the most likely to win if it wasn't Trump?
Oh.
Look, this is the amazing part, and I'll speak to the primary elections. Donald Trump was so far out front and better than every other candidate that what happened was when we launched the campaign in June, by the beginning of July, Donald Trump was number one in the polls in New Hampshire, and we were very concerned because no candidate had ever run wire to wire in the campaign.
That's
So
a
I said-
dangerous thing.
I said, sir, we have to slow down. We got to dial it back a little bit. I'm afraid if we're out and we're the leader for the next year, we're going to have our heads ripped off. And he says, Corey, no way, baby. We're going all in. And we double down every single time. And what that did for us is it established him as the front runner early on. We ran wire to wire. And look, there were some very good candidates in that race. Some people claim it was the greatest Republican field ever assembled with governors, senators, leaders of business, brain surgeons, family members of presidents. Donald Trump decimated them all with relative ease.
So I am looking at the field. When I was looking at the field, it was a tremendous group of people, from Dr. Carson to Ted Cruz to Rand Paul and on and on and on. But and I thought if I had to pick one person, and I think it really did come down to this, it was Ted Cruz, because the way the country's politics, the way the Republican primary voter was really engaged, I thought that it would either be Donald Trump or Ted Cruz, who's a tremendous senator from Texas. And so I hope everybody is looking at TrumpCampaignBook.com as well, right? And I think we can, if you go to TrumpCampaignBook.com, you can get a copy of this book. You can read. Look, this book is chock full of incredible nuggets from the inside of this campaign, from wire to wire, start to finish. Corey started the campaign on the first day, and I was there on election night all the way through, and we have a little bit of the transition, the presidential transition, as well as a couple of scenes from inside the White House when we were both in there visiting, not working, visiting.
That's right.
We really are proud of this book. We wrote this book for all of the people who worked on this campaign with us, right? I mean, this book, just like the campaign, was a team effort. And we couldn't have written this book without everybody on that campaign's help and being part of it. And so I think we hope you'll go to TrumpCampaignBook.com and get your copy today. Order it right now so it gets there in time for Christmas or the holiday.
And so look, here's another question. What Trump campaign innovations do you think future presidential campaigns will adopt? I don't think our campaign gets enough credit for how lean of an organization we were. We talk about it in the book, right? It was a small group. We did things with a smaller team. It's widely known Hillary Clinton had 900 people in her Brooklyn office, just in the Brooklyn office. The Trump campaign might have had 300 people on Election Day across the country. That's how small, how lean, how efficient we were. We spent a fraction of the money. You know why? Because we were beholden to a businessman who wanted to run the campaign like a business, like he runs the country like a business. That's what the American people want, because they're tired of politicians who go and waste their money in Washington. So, TrumpCampaignBook.com. We're signing him right now.
We're signing him right now. Look at that. Beautiful signatures right here. Beautiful, fantastic signatures.
Look, there's so many good stories in this book, from personal accounts of Dave and I to spellbinding, having your face ripped off by candidate Trump, to traveling with us on Trump Force One, to the meals we have, to being at Mar-a-Lago, to prepping the candidate and being part of the presidential debates, to spending time with his family. If you had watched any part of that presidential campaign for the last 2 years, a movement that took over America and took over the media, this is the only book that's going to have the opportunity to tell you what really took place. And I'll tell you, Dave and I, we're so lucky that since candidate Trump has been elected, President Trump, we've had the privilege of going to the White House to see him. He let us fly on Air Force One with him. It was a very special day to be on that amazing plane. But he's the same person. And what I mean by that is he's so gracious that when even on Air Force One, even when he's the leader of the free world and we're having dinner together on the plane, the president wants to share his meal with us because that's the type of person he is.
That was an amazing thing. When you're traveling on the campaign, you all ate off each other's plates, and we did. But when we were on Air Force One, the president was brought in by the steward his dinner, and it was spaghetti and meatballs, and he had maybe 2 or 3, fairly good sized meatballs on the plate, and he looks at Corey and I and he says, "Cor, you want?" And he looks at Corey and he says, "You know what, Corey? You don't eat any of these. Dave, you'll eat a meatball. I know you will." And I was like,
the president of the United States, so he asked the porter. This is how gracious of a man the president is, and he gets no credit. He asked the porter, he said, "Could you bring Dave a couple meatballs? Because my fellow over here needs a couple meatballs."
Yeah.
And the porter said, "Mr. President, I'm sorry, there's no more meatballs. These are the last ones." He says, "Bring me a plate, I'll split mine with you." And there's the president of the United States willing to cut up his food to give to the staff, which is, look, that's what this book is about. It's about the rise, the camaraderie, the friendship, right? It's the Trump campaign. You got to go buy the book. Get a signed copy. It's going to be a special thing for you, not just for today, but for the future when you want to look back and see how special that campaign was from really the only 2 people who had the privilege of being there from the beginning all the way through the end to see every major decision. That's what this book is about. Let Trump be Trump is a really special place.
TrumpCampaignBook.com. Go there now and get your signed copy before we run out. And make sure you order it today because, Christmas is right around the corner. I know we're just saying Christmas for the first time now.
All right, we can say Merry Christmas again.
We can say Merry Christmas again. The president ran on it and won.
Benjamin here from Queen Creek, Arizona, asks a question. He says, "What is your funniest story about the president?" And the thing is, Benjamin, there's so many. Some that I can tell publicly, some that I can't tell. But the best part, and look, we talk about it in the book, one of my favorite things is when someone tries to change the president and his reaction. There was a time in the campaign where we brought some management in, and they thought they were going to change the way Donald Trump was going to be on television. This guy.
Who was it?
This guy, I won't even tell you his name. Bad decision. But look at Trump was so enraged. We were up in the helicopter, and he says, lower the helicopter. I got to get cell phone service." And he lowers the helicopter, and he starts, ripping this guy's head off. And it's funny, it's comical, it's in the book because the Trump campaign book, this is very special. TrumpCampaignBook.com. You got to buy it. There are a very limited amount of signed copies that Dave and I are going to do. This is the only place you're going to be able to get it. So you need to order
right here.
Exclusive right here.
Let's take another question. Vincent from Methuen. What do you think that's? Methuen?
Methuen, Massachusetts.
Methuen.
Hey, I grew up in Lowell, next town over, Vincent. I might know you.
Is that it? Vincent.
We might be related, so
now,
be
Vincent,
careful.
I grew up in Stoughton, so I don't know where that is compared to Stoughton. But
right off of 495. I drive by it every day. 93.
With so much corruption going on by the Democrat Party, where would a citizen go if they had information concerning corruption or illegal activity by the Democrats? It's a great question.
Don't call Jim Comey.
Yeah,
how's that?
He's unavailable. Look, there's a couple of groups, depending on what the information is, that really are the leading cutting edge when it comes to corruption and trying to uncover things. Judicial Watch, a tremendous. Tom Fenton runs Judicial Watch. You see him on Fox News routinely uncovering all of these types of corruption inside of party politics. You could call up Judicial Watch. Depending on what it is, you could call Citizens United, which I'm the president of. You call J.T. Mastronati at Citizens United. Citizens United's been at the forefront of uncovering a lot of the Clinton illegalities over the last 16, 20 plus years since the 90s. We are. Those are two. Obviously, you can tell somebody at the RNC because they'll at least be able to point you in the right direction.
That's right. And look, here's another question. The president's family has been such a loyal supporter of his. How were they to work with in the campaign?
Oh yeah.
Look,
we just saw Laura and Eric end up.
It's been such a privilege to get to know the Trump family, from Donnie Jr., Ivanka, Eric, Tiffany, Barron, Melania Trump. They are such a class act. It has been such an honor to have the privilege to get to know them, work side by side with them, understand what their family values are truly about, that they are together in everything they do, and that this campaign, look, we talk a lot about them in the book, right? TrumpCampaignBook.com. This is a family operation that the campaign was, that we were all part of, but they always stand by each other no matter how tough it gets. And this is a family that has been criticized by the mainstream media unfairly on so many occasions that, look, having the opportunity to stand next to them, work next to them has been a great privilege. And, you know, a sign of how good a man is what his children turn out to be. And if you look at what his children have become, Donnie, Ivanka, Eric, Tiffany at Georgetown Law School, they have become successes. You never read about these kids in the papers at clubs and doing things that they shouldn't. They understand they are model citizens, they are entrepreneurs and successful at everything they do, and I'm very happy to have the opportunity to have worked next to them and consider them all my friends.
And one other question that's pervasive throughout, and you know, there's a lot of people asking very similar questions, but Patrick from Portland, Oregon asks, why is Trump hated so much, and why do people want to take him down so badly? You know, Patrick, and that's the question we're reading, but you could see that there's a feeling of that, right? I mean, I've never seen such anger and vitriol from the other side. The ability for them to not even work with the president, for Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer to not even go to the White House, unheard of last week when they just decided they were going to stand the president up at the White House. No one does that. Their inability to reach across the aisle. This president wants to work with everyone. He campaigned on it. He said, I want to bring everyone together. And that's the way he's tried to do that, even with some issues that Republicans don't want him to. He's reached out his hand across the aisle, and what do? They slap it every single time. And so the reality is, we don't, and I don't understand it, but it seems that the Democrats have no interest in leading America, that they have no interest in changing America for the better. They only want to continue the status quo, and that is a broken status quo. That we were headed at the end of the Obama administration, and the reason that there is a President Trump is that we were standing on the edge of an abyss. If Hillary Clinton had become president, I shudder to think what our Supreme Court would look like, what our economy would look like, what our national security would look like. The president has done such an amazing job, but the left will not even give him a shot.
That's exactly right. You know, here's a great question. It says, when you were in college, would you ever have imagined that you would eventually be a campaign manager on a winning presidential campaign? Look, when I was in college, I couldn't imagine actually finishing college, let alone what we've been able to achieve. But we live in the greatest country in the world, and a kid from Lowell, Massachusetts, who grew up in relative poverty in a single-parent household, and I talk about that, was able to not only be part of a presidential campaign, which is beyond my wildest expectations, to manage one, and now have a friend, and I mean that in the best sense, who is the President of the United States. Never, ever, ever would I ever have envisioned that. But this country has so many opportunities. And I'll tell you, I'm so grateful and so thankful that I've been given those opportunities. But we have to remember, we have to fight for those every day.
Yep. And you know, it's funny, you know, he was from Lowell, and, you know, I was born and raised in East Boston, right near him, in a much poorer section of town, I might add. And I did 15 plus years in the fire service, and Corey was a cop. We are two blue collar guys. We are two guys that recognize hard work and have a work ethic that we feel, that I try to instill in my children, that if you don't have to be the smartest, the best, but if you are smart and you work the hardest, you will get ahead. And that's what makes this country so great. No matter who you are, no matter where you're from, you can have the same opportunities if you are prepared to put your shoulder to the grindstone and really, you need to get an education. Education is the key to success. But you don't have to have a Harvard education.
Well, that's good, because I'd be in big trouble.
we wouldn't be around.
They wouldn't let me drive by Harvard. They asked me not to slow down when I went through Cambridge a few times. I was probably doing something I shouldn't have been doing.
Exactly.
But look, it's hard work, it's dedication. That's what I was instilled with. Dave was growing up in those blue-collar towns. That's what allowed us to be successful. You know, there's a question here. How much of Trump's victory can be credited to the campaign operatives, campaign operations like advertising, get out the vote campaigns, and how much...
That's great.
To Trump being Trump? You know, here's what I like to say, and I think I have a unique position to say it. Anybody who takes credit for this victory, who is not the President of the United States, is full of shit, okay? And if you go to the TrumpCampaignBook.com and you read about it, okay, this was a one-man wrecking machine. This was a man who, through his sheer will, working 20 hours a day, willing to travel tens of thousands of hours on airplanes. You know, we talk about this in the book. Just to put this in perspective, in the book, we outlined this from the beginning of the campaign to the end. 998,000 gallons of jet fuel alone. We put the plane down in 722 places in 45 states, right? And we spent thousands of hours in there. Now, most of the time I was on the plane, a lot of time Dave was on the plane. The candidate was on the plane 100% of the time. 100%. He didn't have a day off.
The plane didn't move if he wasn't
When
on it.
Corey went home to see the family every 4, 5, 6, or 8 weeks to take a day off, the candidate didn't have a day off. His sheer will, his ability to work harder than any man I've ever seen in my life, the ability that he has to say, Corey, what time do I need to be ready in the morning? I'd say, sir, please be ready at 6 a.m. He didn't even ask where we were going. He just showed up and went to work, and we'd finish at midnight or 2 or 3 in the morning, and he'd say, are we ready to go again tomorrow? I'd say, sir, let's take tomorrow off. He says, there are no days off. I don't have time for days off. I want to work. And that, anybody else who claims to have credit for his success is not being truthful. This election was about staffers like us in the book trying to put a system in place, but Donald Trump was just a machine.
100%. No one person other than Donald Trump won this campaign. We were too small.
Cogs in the wheel.
Cogs in the wheel. That's exactly how we term it. We were fortunate to be in the right place at the right time. We worked our tails off for him. We didn't want to ever disappoint him. Some days we didn't. Some days we did. We lived to see another day, each one of those. And so we are two very proud guys, but two incredibly humbled guys to be able to be here today, signing books for you. I hope you'll go to TrumpBook.com, TrumpCampaignBook.com, get your exclusive copy today. Corey and I are signing these books right now, and we want you to have one for the Trump fan, for the American history fan, for anyone who loves America, who loves a great read, and really wants to know the inside of what it was like to be on the campaign. Get Let Trump Be Trump for your friends and family today.
You know, that's exactly right. And, we'll take a couple more questions here. We're almost out of signing books, so you have to get it now. You have to go right away to make sure you do this because there's a small stack left. All the others are almost taken. So, look, go get your book. Here's a great question. For Trump himself, were there high and low points of the campaign, or does he not let anything affect him? The high points are we won 38 primaries and caucuses, but there's 50 states. And so the other 12 were low points because we didn't win them all.
He wanted to know why.
He wants to know why he doesn't win every time. And in states like Wisconsin and Iowa and places where Utah, I didn't think we had a fighting chance. Texas, because Ted Cruz was in the race. Oklahoma. He wants to win everything, every time, through the sheer madness of working harder than anybody else. And so, sure, there were low points, but those high points was so invigorating, and he was so gracious. Look, when we finished second place in Iowa, that was a low point for Corey Lewandowski because he expected to win, even though nobody told him he could. He just said, I can win. I want to win. I want to win so badly. And what we talk about in this book, Let Trump Be Trump, available right now, is reading about what that is like from a staff side, right? How you're so disappointed in yourself that you didn't deliver for him because he deserves the best. And in the general election, the debate prep that Dave and the team gave to him to be prepared to go up against what many consider to be one of the greatest debaters of our modern lifetime in Hillary Clinton, and the Democratic juggernaut that was completely unified behind her for a single mission, which was to destroy Donald Trump. And they tried everything. They released his taxes. They made up stories. They attacked his family. They disparaged him personally. They called him a racist. You name it, they tried it. We talk about it in the book. You got to get your signed copy today before we run out.
I think we're coming to a close on signing these books. I hope that you've enjoyed, our time together. I know we have. Look, we love talking about this book. We love talking about the president. We love talking about all of the issues. There's so many great stories. We start the book on election night. We start the book with the detail of what it was like on election night, from the time we got the early exit polls that said we were going to be crushed to us going.
Spoiler alert, we won. Just so you know. Election, spoiler alert.
That's how it ended. And all the way up through our acceptance speech and Hillary Clinton calling, you're going to get the inside story. Go to TrumpCampaignBook.com. Get your book now. You're going to get the details of Billy Bush weekend. We go through. I was in the room the entire time. I was there when the president found out about the issue, and we worked ourselves through that. All the debates are in there. We, in detail, tell you what it was like when we were offered jobs in the White House, and how we decided to not do that. And so there's no greater honor or privilege than to be even thought of, to be honest with you, for a couple of dummies like us. Well, I'll speak for myself,
That's
but
right.
it's really an incredible honor.
There's one more question I just want to get to quickly. It says, when Trump lashed out at a staffer, were they on his bad side from then on, or would he forget about it the next day?
Not even the next
Look,
day.
there is a great story in here about Susie Wiles, who was our Florida state director. You have to read the whole story, but Susie is a professional, a true campaign professional, and she was running our Florida operation, and her and Dave were at dinner. And not only did Mr. Trump,
We were at Doral in Florida.
Trump ripped Dave's face off, but he ripped Susie's face off because he demanded and expects the best, and Florida was such a critical place.
Well, I had just talked him into changing our Florida state director. I had just said Susie Wiles will change our polling. We will win Florida with Susie. She had been in the job maybe 2 weeks, and the polls hadn't changed yet. He expected them to have changed. And that dinner was detailed in this book. It was a tough dinner. But Susie and I left that table wanting to deliver Florida for the president. And Susie did, and her team did an amazing job. But the president won Florida. The president won North Carolina. The president won all of the states. The sheer force of his will, the sheer force of his personality, the sheer work ethic that he displayed on that campaign, never stopping. I was in charge of the schedule, building and using the strategic aspect of scheduling, and we detail all of the rallies and how we picked where we were going to go in this book. So go to TrumpCampaignBook.com. Get your signed copy, your autographed signed copy today. Corey and I, we're going to sign as many as we can today. We're down to the last few here, but I hope that we're going to hear we need to sign a few more. So get your copy today.
And look, just to finish up, after the president and candidate rips your face off, he's shaking your hand. He's telling you you're doing a great job. He's willing to call your family. You know, I spent so much time on the road. He would say to me, "Hey, Corey, should I call your wife and tell her the great job you're doing?" And I'd say, "Sir, I just want to work." And I think he respected that, but he was always thoughtful of the other people who were affected by that hard work ethic. And Susie will tell you, after that tough dinner, Dave will tell you, they connected a few days later on that Florida trip, and it was as if Susie and candidate Trump were best friends, and they are. And that's the great part. They're friends, they respect each other, and winning always beats losing. And I can tell you, this book wouldn't have been half as good if we had lost. And so the best part of this is, it is such a success. It's an American success story from two guys like us who had a small role in helping a man who nobody thought could become the President of the United States, become the leader of the free world. We did it because it was the core values that we believed in. You have to read the book, but it also tells you you can do it too. I'm grateful. I'm thankful. TrumpCampaignBook.com. We've signed our last copy. We want you to buy it. You got to buy it today. We'll get you some more if you need to.
Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Corey, that was great.
I feel good.